So good afternoon and welcome at this edition of QBS Talks, where I want to talk with you about generating more leads. That's always interesting for any partner, but this time not through functions and features, but generating more leads via prospect education. My name is Guus Krabbenborg and I'm responsible in QBS Group for, as you can see, business training, partner coaching and inspiration. And I assume that these talks will be part of the last part, inspiration. So a few words about QBS Talks. So it's a service delivered by QBS Group, and you might or might not know and have heard of QBS Group, but QBS Group today is the European SMB distributor. Microsoft used to call companies like us master VARs in the near past. And today, QBS Group is the largest SMB distributor in the Dynamics channel worldwide. So today we help more than 400 Dynamics NAV and CRM partners in 17 countries to improve their business. And we have several tools and manners to help partners, but QBS Talks webinars are one of them. So we like to support people that are partner. Of course, if you're not a partner, please stay comfortable in this call. And if you like it, of course, you're invited to have a look on the benefits of our partnership for you. So we deliver these QBS Talks on a frequent basis. At the end of the talk, I'd like to show you some editions that will come soon. And as you can see in the bottom, there's a link to the website where you can see why it would be interesting for you to become a partner. So a few words about myself. I already said my name, and what can I say? I've been working all my business life in business applications. So I did that for more than 25 years. Today, I'm one of the owners of this nice company, which is actually a group of companies. And two of the daughters in this group are called QBS Group and Partner Master Class, where QBS Group is the SMB distributor and Partner Master Class is a training company for business skills, also known as a PDC, Partner Development Center. So myself, I've been focusing the last few years on helping Dynamics partners to make the move from the old world to the new world and help them prepare for a cloud-first, mobile-first world. So I was responsible for training hundreds of Dynamics partners in more than 35 countries into this program. So I've learned a lot together with partners on the impact of all these changes for companies. Interesting, I believe in my work is that I not just work together with partners, but I also work together with prospects. So I run workshops for prospect companies. So we call them ERP Master Class or CRM Master Class, and I did that over the last 12 years. And to be honest, that gives me a nice insight in the way prospects think, in the needs they have, and in the way they take decisions. So that gives a lot of interesting input for my work for partners. It gives also inspiration to write blogs, to publish books and do presentations. And some people said maybe you should add this last line in your profile that I'm from Holland, and you know, Dutch people are not really famous for good football, but neither we are for being political. So it could be a bit sharp and blunt. Then at least I've warned you. So I would like to start with a bit of context around prospect education. First of all, and I know it's an open door for all of you, but selecting and implementing business software is far from easy. If you put yourselves in the shoes of a potential prospect, a potential customer, think what decisions they have to take, right? First and foremost, they have to choose a vendor, a system, right? And somebody who could help them with the implementation. So it's vendor selection and partner selection. Of course, the solution they want to choose should have a place in their current IT architecture. So does it fit? Do we need to integrate something? Is it done out of the box? What's the impact on other systems? Of course, today a big question is, should they choose for an on-premise solution or a cloud solution? Right? If it's cloud, if it's already good, is it available in their country? Does the vendor have a good cloud solution? But also, is the infrastructure okay? Right? Can we trust on the cloud? Can we trust on data? You know, all the discussion. And at the end of the day, what prospects will do is check the risks with a certain vendor and check the risks with a certain partner and balance that to the trust that these guys could give. If you dive one step deeper, right, it's a hugely difficult question for companies today to determine what they need, right? So what do we need in the system? What functions, what features, what scope? What do we need now? What do we need next year? What do we need in 10 years from now? Of course, there's, let's say, obvious things like data conversion, not always easy, and today, very important organizational change, right? We come from an era where we changed the software towards the processes of the customers, and now we move in an era where the customer is invited to change their processes towards the software. So that comes with change, and we all know that human species are not really great in change. So it's important today to spend time and effort in organizational change. And then, of course, they need dedication of the team, right? They need time. There is time constraints, there's money constraints. It needs discipline. And once they're up and running, well, there's new versions. And as you know, in a SaaS world, the new versions come more frequently. So, all in all, for prospects to decide on, new systems for new projects, this is not an easy task. For you, let's say the context for you as a partner is that many of you will be interested moving forward to Dynamics 365. I think the concept that Microsoft drawn for us is a great concept, but many partners don't realize that the competition that you can expect with Dynamics 365 will be much more than the competition you have today. Let's assume today you're in NAV or CRM or in AX, or maybe in a combination of those. Then you compete with your NAV partners or the other CRM partners. What you can expect in, let's say, the near future is that if you move towards the Dynamics 365 arena, there's an explosion of competitors to be expected. Because as you can see and already read, of course, that a lot of the NAV, GP, Solomon, AX partners will dive into Dynamics 365. I know they're not in the same edition, because there is a business edition, there is an enterprise edition, but just think about how many people would like to end up on the first page of Google results. We know there's only 10 slots, but there's 10,000 of companies or even more that fight for that position, that brain position. So on top of that, it's CRM partners, and we have to be aware that it's not just the ERP and CRM partners from your own country, the ones that you compete with today, but through AppSource, you'll find out that you will compete with NAV, ERP, CRM partners from other countries as well. On top of that, we see ISVs that consider to go direct and not to work with local VARs anymore. So these ISVs will become your new competitors as well. Then Microsoft puts a lot of effort in finding partners in the space of Office 365 and SharePoint, for instance. There's hosting partners, there's business process outsourcing partners, think about accountants, and there's disties that will start offering Dynamics 365 as a box. And on top of that, if it's not enough, Microsoft is trying to hunt for new partners from compete platforms and re-platform them. And we'll see, the upcoming of spin-offs, people that move away from the company they work and start a new company. So all in all, for a partner, it's more than ever important to differentiate yourself from somebody else, right? If you today compete with 30 or 50 or 80 partners that are just like you, and that's not so easy to do that competition. Imagine it 300, 500 or 800, right? So you need to be different, and the best way to be different is not giving the biggest discounts, of course, but to add value, right? Differentiation. So that's a task for all of you. Now I'd like to take you back to the beginning, right? The context for prospective customers. And I found out over the last 10 plus years in my workshops for these prospects that most people that select the system in the SMB arena are beginners. Right? Beginners means these guys do it for the first or the second time. As a matter of fact, more than 90% of the people in my trainings said to me they select the system for the first or the second time. And the less than 10% that do it often are people that do it professionally. They're either interim manager or selection consultants. So if you forget everything about this webinar and just remember one thing, probably here's the one thing. Never ever forget in your business life that most prospects in SMB markets are beginners in software selection. Now, if I think about all the things that I did in my life for the first or the second time, either in business or in private life, and I don't want to dive in details, but I can tell you my first or second attempts were not always the best experiences. Why? Well, I was a beginner. And as the text on the slide shows you, beginners make beginner mistakes. So if you dive into, let's say, selection of software, a number of beginner mistakes might sound familiar to you. Those people have no idea what the size of the budget should be, right? Should it be big? Should it be small? What is it? They have no idea which people internally, which colleagues they should ask for support or help, and how they should create the good teams. Think about key users or sponsors, right? If I say sponsors, they have no experience with management buy-in, and we see, and you see, a lot of business owners and senior people standing with their back to the projects where they should fight in the projects and start helping. A lot of mistakes are made around urgency, right? A lot of projects are delivered without enough urgency, and the impact is that people don't do their homework, don't train enough, don't focus enough. I think we touched already on change and organizational change, right? It's a big challenge for these beginning people to get their organization in the change mode, right? And you might think, Gus, don't worry, because they select a selection consultant and that's the professional that will help them. I would say most of them are even unexperienced into selecting the right selection consultant, right? So the result of all this, and of course we could add many more examples, but the result of all this is that people that do the first implementation or first selection, they learn a lot, right? And if you ask them after the implementation, hopefully it was successful in their sort of life, you ask them, did you learn a lot? Oh yes, I learned a lot, but they would all admit it would have been 10 times better if I would have learned it up front, right? So to avoid the steep learning curve while doing. Well, result of all this, I think I touched on a few, right? Companies select the wrong solution, right? Happens a lot. Companies select a good solution but the wrong partner. Happens a lot, right? As an example, customers choose for customizations, and when they are live, then they find out that there was a standard app tested, documented, and already in use by many other people for a fraction of the time and the price they spent in the customizations. Another example of results is that the project lead time is way too long, which means that the key users are not doing their core business job. And what happens also is that they do select the right solution and even the right partner, but with the wrong internal mindset, you still have problems, right? And another example is, finding a vendor that doesn't have enough R&D or doesn't have enough innovation. So at the end, they end up with a dead-end street solution. Well, you can imagine that, people with the steep learning curve will say, what if I could have learned everything up front? What if some partner would be so wise and nice to help me up front, right? So let me take this what if in a small exercise. It's just a small, mind cracker. Imagine I'm your boss, right? With some fantasy. So imagine I'm your boss. And what if I would ask you to select a new telephone communication system, a PABX, right? And imagine I say to you, this is an important step. Okay, there's a lot of money involved. The result of this new selection process means a lot to the future of our organization. And I say to you, failure is not an option. But imagine it's the first time you've heard of the acronym PABX. You don't even know what the acronym means, but you feel pressure on your shoulders a lot because again, failure is not an option. So where would you start, right? What kind of information are you looking for? Well, I start with Wikipedia to find out what the acronym means. And then you start using the acronym in Google or in Bing to start searching. However, if you start searching, you find websites, and those websites are filled up with all kind of other acronyms you're not familiar with, right? So, what's the information you would like? What's the risk you run, right? Of course, the obvious risk is selecting the wrong PABX, but the more important risk for you is losing your job or not getting the promotion that you're after, right? And the question, of course, is how could vendors of PABXs helping you as a greenhorn, as a rookie, right, to select? So, what I believe is that there's a lot of ERP and CRM selection persons that are in the same situation, don't know what to do, don't know where to start. So, that brought me to the idea to write a blog. And, this is Dutch language, if you're not familiar with it, right? And it says, stop buying licenses, stop buying ERP software, And basically the text is, there's hardly organizations to be found on the planet that are happy if the implementation is successful in the second or the third round, right? Of course, everybody knows it should be successful in the first round, right? They don't have the time nor the money or the energy to try a second or the third time. And that's the reason, what I wrote in my blog, that's the reason why people should stop buying software and services and should start buying successful projects. Well, you see in the red figures that although Holland is only a small country, in no time I had thousands of views and a lot of people reacting. So this really was a topic that people liked, right? So if you start thinking about stop selling licenses and start selling successful projects, reasons to do that is, first of all, you differentiate yourself. You differentiate yourself from other people, is it with NAV or CRM or later on with Dynamics 365, that just want to sell a license and run away, right? It's a differentiator because the prospect will feel that you're on their side and that you will only stop working once the success is there. And success goes with more investments, more training, more consultancy, because if that brings the success, then people are willing to pay more. If they're more happy, it means you get lower churn rate, right? So as soon as people start hiring software for you on subscription based, they will stay longer, they'll be more happy, they tell other people they're happy, and it helps you in the long term to a professional business, to a more profitable business. So the question is where your focus is. And I know I talk a lot with partners in many countries and they tell me, Gus, we are focused on customer value. But the question is, do you focus on the value of the customer for you and your wallet? Or do you focus on the value for your customer, right? And then, of course, this could be a moment to rethink, where you're after. Because we know if you have the same old thinking and the same old mindset, you get the same old results. So this could be a moment where you say, hey, interesting, thought for food, let's try to think in a different way. So that's the context. Now, prospect education, telling people, what it is, showing them the way to successful projects, what's the impact of that? So I came across a report from Rain Group, and these guys were looking at the formula for successful salespeople. So they tried to find out what sales winners do differently from people end up on a second place. They didn't stop at IT, but they took a broad review in the B2B business, right? And they did ask questions. So what do buyers want from sellers? And then the question was, did the seller or didn't he or she do certain things that are commonly believed to be good? And if the sellers did better in this area, how much more likely would it have been to consider purchasing from the second place winners versus the winner, right? So it's one way it's from the salesperson and the other way is outside in from the buyer. Well, in general, you see 6 points that buyers want from sellers. And if you're in sales or in marketing, I hope you're not surprised, and I hope it's open doors. Number one, overall value from the company is superior to other options. So they look for value, right? What does it mean for them? What are the benefits? Second place, products and services superior to other options, right? That supports number one, of course. Crafted a compelling solution. Number three. Number four, differentiation. Remember the oranges, the green and the orange ones, right? Differentiate their solution and services from other options. Number five, understood my needs, right? And number six, probably aligned with number five, they listen to me. That's interesting, right? Because a lot of people like to talk, but we should never forget that there's a reason why we have only one mouth and two ears, right? The answer is listening is double as important as speaking, of course, right? Now, if you look at the top 10 things that winners do differently, here's the overall top 10. Right? And you could walk you through all of them, but I would like to get your focus on the number one. The top 10 attributes that separates the gold winners from the silver winners is they educated me with new ideas or perspectives, right? They inspired me. They gave me a new angle, a new view, right? Now, the interesting point, I think, is here in the slide, building this all up. So it's smaller, so maybe you need glasses or a little bit closer to your screen. But the number one, educated me with new ideas or perspectives, is number one with what the winners do, and ranked number 42 only for the guys on the second place. Well, I think that's a big gap. And it's interesting enough for us to see what the impact is of prospect education. So that brings me with topic 3, the timing of prospect education, right? Now, I hope you're familiar with the marketing and sales funnel. And we are in our trainings, we talk a lot about, as you see on the picture on the left, that in the old days, marketing did only a first part and then handed over the so-called lead or prospect to sales in an early stage. And in today's world, where we see new buying behavior, where prospects prefer to stay anonymous and do their buying journey, avoiding salespeople, this handover is in a later phase, right? So the question is, where could you start doing this prospect education? Well, I believe that in this orientation phase, right, there's a lot of things that you can do. So later on in this call, I'll show you some examples like blogs, like ebooks, checklists, mind maps, videos, webinars, and even workshops. In the decision phase, close before their final decision, it's risk analysis and organizational change workshop. And in the implementation phase, once the contract is signed, you could think of kickoff support and presentations. So that brings me to the second large part of this webinar, and that's examples of prospect education. Well, again, if your prospect who does it for the first or the second time in his or her life is in the orientation phase, there is a lot to see. If you type in just only the 3 letters CRM or ERP in Google and hit the button, you'll see there's millions and millions and millions of search results, right? So for people who don't know where to search for, it's not easy, right? It gives you a headache. So one of the first things that I would like to show to you is that we build a checklist to measure continuity and innovation perspective. So why is that important? Well, most people don't buy a new system for a week, not even for 3 months or a year. We all know that. They buy it for long years. If you ask people in prospects in the Western world, how long would you like to work with this new system? They will say, for depreciation and tax reason, at least 5 years. But if you ask, would you like to replace it after 5 years? They will probably say something like, implementation is not our hobby. So we like to focus on our customers and our core business, and we don't want to replace every 5 years. So if you ask them how long really they would like to work with the system, some people say, well, at least 10 years. And some people say the rest of my life, right? And of course, we talk about systems that are updated with new versions and innovation. So if you think about 10 years, you need to find out, is my vendor still alive in 10 years from now? And if they're still alive, are they still working on new innovation? Can they follow the rat race of innovation? Do they spend enough R&D? Do they have enough money? Do they have enough competencies? So this checklist really is a help for prospects to say, I got 3 vendors, as you see on the right, potential vendor A, B, and C, or partner A, B, and C, and start raising questions about the size, the footprint, the profit, the R&D investments, and so on and so further. Second example I want to show you is a mind map. Now again, this is in Dutch language, and I know most of you are probably living in other countries and speak other languages, but since it's a mind map, it shows us, that it is sort of a checklist for successful projects, right? And you see graphs that you are familiar from traffic, so it's be careful, here's a roundabout, mind you, there might be some wind or whatever. So this is a tool that we developed and that we can and probably will translate for partners, right? So that you could use this, to give guidance to those prospects that do it for the first or the second time. The third example I want to share with you are books. So I've been writing books, I've been writing blogs and bundled those blogs in books. And these books there are different books, but the 2 of them are Improve Your CRM Projects, and there's another book, Improve Your ERP Projects. And typically these books talk about selecting, like you see here, the cover, selecting CRM systems with an example, right? If you select a vendor, select a partner, are you looking for a supplier? Just somebody who does what you ask? Or are you looking for a sparring partner? Look at the gloves, right? You're looking for someone who says, why do you want to do that? Really, is it important? Are you sure this process is still sustainable in the next 10 years? Or is it something from your history? Are you sure you still want to have your fax and telex processes as my metaphor, right? The second of our book from this edition is about contracting. The third part is about implementing, and the fourth and the last part is about using. So once again, selecting, the first step. After you select it, you contract. After you contract, you implement, and after you implement, you use, right? Interesting books, small stories, not about Microsoft, not about any of your products. It's product agnostic, but it helps prospects to understand which steps to make, what to do internally, and how to do that. We got the books in standard versions, but also it's possible, to make them white labeled, say, did you make your own cover? So you see the same book here, but then it's the cover from a Dutch partner called Verito, and they say it takes courage to stay ahead. Well, for sure it takes courage, right, to transport yourself this way like these guys are doing, but it also means that, they build their own book based on their own house style. That's something that you could do as well. Another example that is from Prodware, where they said, if you are the one responsible for selecting the system, you're sort of the captain of a boat and not an ordinary boat. In this case, it's the Titanic, as you see with a bit of fantasy. And the idea behind this campaign is that they say selecting a system seems to be pretty easy, right? But once you're doing it, you'll find out how difficult it is. And they use the metaphor of an iceberg because, the tip of the iceberg seems as a small berg, but 90% of that is underwater. And then the title is Blink of Zinc. It's Dutch again, but it says, are you going to shine or is your boat going down to the bottom of the ocean? Right? And they use the 4 different books in different stages. Books. Another example is ERP Master Class or CRM Master Class. This is a one-day workshop that we could deliver for you to your prospects, or that we could teach you so that you could redeliver these workshops to your prospects and suspects. These people are companies that are 12 or 18 or even 24 months away from a decision. And again, if they start like selecting a PABX system in my example, they have no idea where to start. So this is a one-day workshop, right? In the early buying cycle, that it adds a lot of value to these people in terms of what to do, what not to do, where are the pitfalls, and what's the advice. So I selected a few slides of this slide deck, which is a one-day workshop, and it talks about project failure, right? And it's a paradox that Mr. Kops already described last century, and he says we know why projects fail, and we even know how to prevent them. So why do they still fail? So that's start of a discussion on failure and how to prevent failure, right? We talk about ERP or CRM as an organizational project. We all know that still a lot of customers believe it's an IT project, and they put 5 IT people in the steering committee, right? They talk bits and bytes, but at the end of the day, the solution is okay, probably, but the organization is not ready. So, we discuss the organizational impact, right? And we say an implementation is quite similar to a reorganization or a merger of 2 companies in terms of uncertainty, in terms of emotions, right? And what does that mean for internal control? And what does that mean for the profile of your project manager? Okay. Then we talk about how to select a system and what the right choice is. And, maybe surprisingly for some of you, I believe that the success or the failure is not so much into the system you select. To be honest, I believe from 100% project success, it may be 30 or maximum 35% of those 100% is to be determined by the solution. 30 to 35. So that leaves 65 to 70% on other topics. Think about the quality of your own organization, right? Think about how many people know the business processes in their own organization. Do they have the overview? Well, in many companies, it's hard to find these people. Think about internal support. Are we open for change? Think about skills and competencies, right? And of course, think about the quality of the implementation partner. So that's messages that come in this workshop, right? Don't just focus on function and features, but try to understand all the aspects for the right choice. And then we help them, to find the right way. So it's a combination of a good solution with a good implementation partner, right? I like the pictures. Hopefully you do the same, right? Combine the best of both worlds. Again, it's only a subset from the total full-day workshop, but it says, for instance, this is a selection process in 10 steps. Right? We all know that most people don't start with analysis and don't define business goals. their first step is looking at a demo, fall in love with software, and then they don't know what problems they need to solve, right? So it helps them to understand step by step to go from analysis to contracting. And later on in the workshop, we talk about 10 important implementation issues. And as you can imagine, these have a lot to do with change and with the what we call the soft factors, the human factors, right? Who's in, what's the task for the management, what's the methodology, right? How do we composite the project team, the dream team, and so on. We could think, and maybe you as well, we could think of creating a first aid kit for project success and think about bundling some of the content in a kit or in a box like you see on the left, right? And offer this kit on the homepage of your website. And then of course you don't give it for free just to everybody. And then, to be clear, I don't expect you to ask money for it, but of course you can ask contact information. So if you say, I'm willing to share this box with you, you get it for no money, but I need your name and email address and maybe a few other things, right? We call that gating, as the marketeers in the call know, right? Then you create your own leads while educating your potential prospects. So then in the decision phase, things that could work, and I've seen you working. One of them is a organizational change workshop. So I used the word change already a few times, but organizational change workshop is something that you could do where you invite the senior management and the business owners of your future prospect, future customer, right? And you have a workshop, again, could be a day, right? If you speak twice as fast, could be half a day. And it talks about, change. It talks about the job that the management have to do. It talks about communication. It talks about defining business goals, right? So it says here today CRM or ERP projects are change projects. I hope you agree. But let's be honest, the human species, we are not good in change. To be more clear, most people hate change, right? So we need to help prospects with change, and we need to help your senior management of your customers need to help their organization with change. So it contains exercises like, what have you learned from the previous implementations with your current CRM system? And please don't just finger point to the vendor and the system, but it's important here to learn the lessons what your own organization could have done better, right? And of course, we do that to avoid that people make the same mistakes over and over again. Then a very interesting part of these workshops is asking people, to define what CRM or what ERP is. Right? So if you ask them, take a piece of paper and write down what ERP is or what CRM is. And you'll be surprised if you ask that to senior management. And of course, people will say it's a CD in on-premise, that's okay, or it's a service in cloud, that's true as well. Some people say it's a project. Some people say it's cooperation. Some people say it could help us to get to this holy grail or one version of the truth. And some other people say it's an attitude. It's an attitude where departments need to work together, right? So it's interesting already to find out if you have the management team around the table, how they look at CRM or ERP and what they think it is, right? Nice starting point for a good discussion, right? Then, the question is, if you determine success, what helps you to make it successful? And of course, the simplest answer is your solution, right? The system or you as an implementation partner. And they're both important. But maybe the customer organization is even more important. Why? Well, dynamic solutions are good, okay, right? There's not much discussion about that. Most implementation partners are good as well because it's their daily job. If you have consultants who are not good enough, sooner or later you skip them. But the customer, the poor customer, is doing these kind of projects every 5 or 8 or 9 or 12 years, right? So these guys are not really good at it. So it's good to understand that the customer organization is probably the weakest chain, right? And so the weakest part. So that's good to see, not to blame them, right? Not to do finger pointing, but just to do observations. And of course, people that say it's coincidence, right, might be the starting point of another good discussion. And then one of the questions is, what skills do you need for success? Well, you can imagine that the IT department will say it's all about the IT skills, right? Because we are IT and IT is important. I don't say it's unimportant, but if we move to cloud solutions, to be honest, most of the IT complexity is arranged by the vendor. If you choose for Microsoft, Microsoft have the data center and the security and the backups and, right? So the amount of IT knowledge over time will probably smaller, where the amount of process knowledge and organizational knowledge will play a bigger role. Of course, we need out of the box thinking. So we need people with guts, or as we say in Spain, with cojones, right? With balls in their pants. We need people that are open and honest. We need, of course, passion. I can tell you this slide could lead to discussions that take, 20 minutes or even longer. So who's the person that is transparent? And how motivated is the management team to support this new implementation? I can tell you, very interesting discussions. And at the end, of course, it's about preparedness to change. We know, I said it before, change never goes naturally. People always ask immediately, conscious or unconscious, what's in it for me? What does it mean for my job, for my future, and so on, right? So that's why education and communication is important. That's why kickoffs are important. That's why the management should show exemplary behavior, right? And the better you prepare the organization to do it, probably less customization is needed. So, just a few slides, like I said before, from a very interesting workshop that brings a lot of value on the table. Last slide is, any project is concerned, money is concerned. And I think it's up to the customer if it's going to be an ow experience, like you see on the left-hand right, or a wow experience on the right-hand side, right? So good content, interesting topic to a target group that's often ignored during projects, right? Could be very interesting for you to help your prospects prepare for the organizational change. The last of the three, so we said orientation, we said decision phase, and now we talk about implementation phase. So examples in implementation phase have to do, for instance, with kickoff. In many projects, there is no kickoff or there is a very small kickoff, like with only 2 or 3 key users, maybe 50 minutes on a Friday afternoon. But ladies and gentlemen, today impact of software is huge. We know that, you know that, right? You tell that to your customers. The impact on the employees at the customers is huge. And it's not just the users, it's also the people that don't have a user right, but of course they are affected because processes are changing. The way information is distributed is changing. Even the layout of prints could be changing. So it's super important to involve and to engage people into kickoff, to tell them what it is, to tell them why you do this, right? Why is that so important? Because it's all about change. And we know in today's disruptive world, I know you all know this, that change is difficult, but not changing could be fatal, right? Think about Nokia. And there's lots of examples of companies that didn't change at all, or Kodak, Eastman Kodak, or changed too late, right? Hopefully you know those examples in your market, in your vertical market as well. So interesting, of course, is, how do you get these examples that I showed you? So I thought I'd make an overview of investments, and there's two flavors. One is you are a QBS partner today. Again, we got more than 400 of them, and we would like to make your life easy. That's the reason why QBS is on Earth, right? And on the right-hand side is the group that is not a QBS partner. I said maybe you're not yet a QBS partner. So let me walk you through the left part first. So this ebook with 20 columns split in 4 small ebooks, Improve Your ERP Projects, is available at any QBS partner at no cost. Just ask your contact person for the content. It's available today in 5 languages. I know we're going to do Spain as language number 6. That doesn't cover all the 17 languages we're in today. But please let us know if you're interested, and then we can see if we can add additional translations. I showed you the checklist continuity, only a small part. It's a longer list. It's available today in 2 languages, in English and German, and it's available at no cost. Again, same story. If you're interested, talk to your contact person at QBS or send me an email, and we'll see if we can add other languages as well. Then we're building videos as we speak. I didn't show you, but we make videos with content from the ERP and CRM Master Class in small videos, 3 to 5 minutes, with very valuable advice. And you could use those videos on your website. Of course, gated, like people need to pay with information before they get access, but that will help you to offer, let's say, selection consultancy services for nothing. only for contact information. And probably you know what prices are for these type of selection consultants. That might be 10 or multiple 10,000 euros, dollars, pounds, whatever you are. So valuable stuff. We'll talk about that later. Then there's this ERP Master Class. If you're a QBS partner, it's available for you for 2,000 euro per day plus T&E cost. I know it's a lot of money, but if you invite 20 companies in the room, it's only 100 euro per company, and you teach them a lot. Yeah, they might be interested to come to you, so you create new leads, and after the day they go dancing out of the door with a lot of knowledge, right? And they think you're a very sympathetic company and put you high on the shortlist. Same story for the organizational change workshop, and the kickoff presentation that I talked a bit about is something that we can agree. It depends on how much time and how much preparation. Okay, on the right hand side, if you're not yet a QBS partner, the ebook with the 20 blocks that you could use in 4 segments is for sale for 2,000 euro. If you pay the 2,000 euro, you get the rights for the book. You can print it, you can make PDFs, you can use the separate blocks on your website, whatever you want. The checklist available for 500 euros, and the other prices are the same. Okay, it's money, I know, and you might say it's not cheap. Well, I'm not sure. It depends on what the results are you have. But of course, there is an option that is much cheaper, and that option is doing nothing. Right? So if you do nothing, as in if you don't educate your prospects, if you go on what you do today, you might run the risk that you end up as number 2 in many selection processes, because you put prospect education on rank number 43 or 42 rather than rank number 1. So please rethink what the cost or the impact is of doing nothing. So that brings us at the end of this talk on prospect education. I'd like to draw your attention for upcoming QBS talks. So the first one is already pretty fast on July 12th, and it's one we do live from Inspire in Washington, the formerly Worldwide Partner Conference, and it's one from my colleague Arjan Janssen from Minds United, talking about Dynamics 365 from an SMB perspective. Right after Inspire, so that's 1 week later, on July 17th, you can find me in the QBS Talks, because I give a short overview from the hot news from Microsoft Inspire in Washington. And then, as you can see, in September and October, we have other events scheduled. If you want to have the overview, right, maybe you should bookmark that URL, is go to the page where you see all those sessions scheduled. So once again, my next webinar, July 17, where we talk about the hot news from Microsoft Inspire. So the screen is black, meaning end of the QBS Talks. I want to thank you for your attention. Wish you good luck with the education of your prospects. And don't forget, if you need any help, ask QBS, because we're here to help you. Have a great day, have a great summer, and talk to you soon.